Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Q for You podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mia, aka Mia Friend, here on YouTube. It's me, ya girl. I'm here joined by my other co-host for today. Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's Dani.
And we got Danielle here. Excuse me. So Chantal couldn't make it for this recording, but she will be back in future recordings. Since it's October, the month of the spoopiness, the spoopy ghosts and ghouls and vampires and werewolves, it's Halloween month, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So Dani suggested that we talk about Corpse Party, at least the first Corpse Party game. That's right. I know a lot of people, well, we were discussing this earlier, a lot of people just know about, like, they've heard the title, or they, like, have seen the OVA. There's an anime OVA, like, 4 episodes, right?
Yeah, there's like a 4, so the OVA, it's titled Corpse Party Tortured Souls. Is it OVA based on the bad endings, or the you can get, like, through all the like, through certain games? Like, they're just based off the bad endings, like, it doesn't hold any, like, real plot to it.
It's not like an anime adaptation of, like, the full games or anything. It's
it's not. It's just there to be, like, horrifying and, like, to scare the crap out of you. That's basically all it is.
Right, so some people have probably heard of it, like, through that, like, you've seen that, or, like, you've, like, just heard the title of, like, disturbing games, or, like, you know, creepy stuff. But, yeah, we're gonna discuss the first game, just the first game. So, because, I mean, I feel like if we discussed all of the games in the Corpse Party series, we'd, like, take, like, 5 hours or something, or more.
Right? Like 5 hours to discuss all 3 games. There's a lot happens throughout 3, but we're only talking about the first one today.
So, we'll talk about the first game. So, well, you chose it, Dani, so why did you want to talk about it?
So, I picked Corpse Party because it's like, during around this time, or in general, I like to, like, play. I have played all 3 games, just to clarify, you guys. I've played all 3 games, and I love this series mainly because it doesn't. The great thing about this series is that it doesn't need to be overly graphic to scare the crap out of you. Like, there's, like, not any grotesque, like you have. It's your imagination, right, that becomes really wild when you, like, see, like, the small, like, pixelated stuff, and you're like, oh god, is that supposed to be this? And you're, like, freaking out. So I feel like it's very underrated and very underappreciated because it can scare the crap out of you, dude.
It's pretty
like,
pretty disturbing. I don't think I was personally like scared. Like, I didn't get jump scared or anything when I was watching a playthrough of the first game, but it was definitely disturbing. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, some of the imagery in terms of, like, the descriptions of what is being described, not necessarily what's being shown, is pretty creepy. It's very disturbing once you kind of, like, learn the backstory of, like, what's going on in the game, and, like, you know, certain characters, like, what they're going through, or, like, how they're suffering and stuff. And that's what I feel like is, like, the most disturbing. And then, of course, you do have, like, some of the CGs. It's, like, kind of like oh my god, I can't believe they're doing that.
Some of the CGs for, like, certain ends freak you out. Like, it's just, like, that can be graphic, but, like, the game makes it really its mission to build up the characters for you and care about them, because that's when all the bad stuff happens, you're like, oh no, they're gonna die, or something bad's gonna happen, and it does a really good job doing that.
Right, like, you don't know what's gonna happen next. It's like, oh, like, you could be heading toward a bad end and you have no idea until you get there. And it's like, oh man, like, that choice I made, like, you know, a couple minutes ago, like, fucked me over. Like, like, I have to start over from, like, a previous save. But yeah,
I highly recommend saving spastically.
Right.
Save spastically in this game. I'll explain in a minute.
Right, it's one of those kinds of games, yeah, where I feel like you do need to, like, save, not only save your game, but save it often.
Oh yeah, big time. If you ever get the chance, like, even you don't need the candle, like, I'll explain that system in a minute, but, like, you don't need the candles to, like, save your game. You can also go off, like, the system and save it, and I recommend doing that.
Right, especially because it's, like, an RPG horror game, and
yeah, it's an RPG horror game.
And, you know, a lot of those, you know, other RPG horror games are, like, you know, they're, like, I feel like Corpse Party kind of, like, paved the way for those games. especially like the like original Corpse Party game, which I know is like the one from like the 90s, like the super like the super retro, like cuz the one we're talking about is like the PSP version, right?
Yep, it's the game we're covering is Corpse, so technically it's called Corpse Party Blood Covered. So this is a remake of the original one
from titled, like what, like
Corpse Party Repeated Fear.
From like 1996 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah, like the one we're talking about, and like you know the images you're gonna see in like the thumbnail and stuff for this video is from this PSP remake of the original game. But like, yeah, I feel like a lot of those other RPG horror games like Mad Father, Witch's House, Misao. What are some of the other ones?
Ebe.
Yeah, I love Ebe. I love Eve so much. That game is so good.
That game is good.
I love that game. I love watching playthroughs of that one. That one's so cute. But yeah, I feel like those RPG horror games, like, you know, they wouldn't be the games that they are without like the original Corpse Party game. So, like, yeah, I feel like this remake, I mean, because I've seen images and stuff of the original one, and I think this remake, you know, this PSP version is better, like, at least in terms of like graphics and stuff, and they add more characters from what I understand.
There's like 3 characters that were added in, because in the original it was only Ayumi, Kishinuma, Satoshi, and I think
and the sister,
Satoshi,
right?
Yuka, and Naomi.
Yeah,
that were the original characters, and they threw the others in.
And I guess they added new characters or like additional characters to, I guess, to further out the story.
Yeah, they did.
So, which, you know, like, I think that's good, because then you have like all these different kinds of personalities like being paired up together and stuff.
But I feel like this game is very, very varied, which is really odd because it's a really good game, and I feel like people have heard of it, they've just never played it. And I feel like this is the great opportunity to give it some love, because this is actually one of my favorite games to play. I actually first played this game on the Vita, which is where we were able to play it at the time, and then they moved it over to like the 3DS or something like that, which was cool.
Oh, so it was on the Vita, not the PSP. Okay, I guess the Vita version.
Was it PS? No, I have it on mine for the Vita.
Oh, maybe it was on Vita and PSP, I guess. It seems like a PSP kind of game.
I think so too. Pretty sure it is, but
it feels like a handheld kind of console game, you know. Like, I'm just like, if they could port it to the Switch, I bet they would.
But actually, funny enough, they actually did port the 3rd game for the Switch.
Oh, really?
Which is really
well. There you go. There you go. I predicted something they've already done.
So we are talking, of course, about Corpse Party. It's an RPG horror game that follows a very wide cast, but we're introduced to the first few right off the bat, the opening sequence. I'll tell you both their first and last names, but I'm gonna refer to most of them by their last name because they're never really spoken to by their first name.
Yeah.
Like, only like a few of them are, but not really. So the premise of the game is that a student is transferring away, and to kind of just say goodbye, they kind of do this so-called, it's basically like a friendship charm, right? They basically say this cute little chant and all this crap, and it's supposed to be like,
they're supposed to be like, they'll be friends forever.
Yeah,
even if you're moving away.
It turns out it was what it was, and all of a sudden they are transported to a whole different type of school. Unfortunately, this is not a normal school. Death and all sorts of things hide beneath their new surroundings, and each one has to survive in his or her own way. It doesn't always, it ends with quite the cliffhanger and a twist, which we'll get into. We're first introduced to our characters, the class of 2-9 in Kisaragi Academy, which is where our story begins. In the school, they're telling it's their festival, and it's like school festival day.
Like, they're kind of cleaning up after the school festival.
It was the cafe, I think. It was for noodles, if I remember correctly. But we open up with class 2-9. Ayumi Shinozaki is telling the ghost story of the school, how it was
Because it's like built on an old school, right?
Yeah.
Like there used to be like an elementary school there, and then they tore it down and they built the school that they go to.
Yeah, but the previous school, the way Ayumi's telling it, the principal committed suicide because a whole bunch of random things were happening in the school, and they decided to tear it down. And she's basically telling this ghost story. But of course, along with Ayumi, who is the class rep, we meet the characters of Seiko Shinohara, Naomi Nakashima, Yoshiki Kishinuma, Satoru Morishige, Mayu Suzumoto, and Satoshi Mochida, and they're all there having a good time telling ghost stories. Of course, it was a ploy to have basically like a little scare that they that Ayumi kind of conjured up with their teacher, Miss Yui Shishido, who rounds out the 9. Well, who rounds it out? Who it comes in. Of course, she's telling everybody, "Hey, you guys are staying out late. You guys should pretty much go home." And of course, we have our other character who comes in because her idiot big brother left his umbrella at home, and she just wanted to make sure he had it. And of course, that is Satoshi's little sister Yuka. And of course, that makes our cast of 9. And of course, as we say, the transfer student is actually Mayu Suzumoto. She's transferring due to family reasons. The point of the charm is you say it 9 times for every person. You say her name, Sachiko, we beg of you, a number of times correlating to the people in the room. No more, no less. And it's supposed to bring you together forever, even if you're distance apart, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's Sachiko ever after, or something like that. And Mayo's like, yay, we get to be friends forever. And all of a sudden, an earthquake happens, opening up the floor, and all 9 fall through.
They're in like a different place. They have no idea where they are. They're like, it looks like a classroom, but it's not our classroom. It's like another.
Yeah, they wake up. Chapter
classroom.
1 opens up with Naomi Nakashima and Seiko Shinohara. They're the characters we kind of hang out with for chapter 1. They kind of notice, hey, this kind of looks like a classroom, but this is a little weird. Why are the desks? So they come to, like, throughout the chapter, they're kind of looking through, like, papers and stuff, and they realize that they're in Heavily Host Elementary School, which was supposedly torn down, and now they're in it, and it's kind of...
Yeah, they're kind of like, oh, we're, like, in the past, basically, because they even look at, like, a piece of paper like on the wall. It has like a year on it.
Yeah, it's the year the papers of the years the murders happen. We'll get to that in a minute. But
that's how they realize, like, oh, we're not in our classroom anymore. Like we're in a different place. Like this isn't our school technically. And they're all separated in different little subgroups because they all end up in like different classrooms.
So the basis to explain it that Naomi and Seiko discovered through a ghost, because they do find bodies and they're like freaking out, because any teenager would, like, oh my god, there are dead people here. A spirit tells them straight out that unfortunately when they did that charm, it not only separated the 9, it separated them into different sub-nexuses, meaning that it is an enclosed space there's
different dimensions within this one school or whatever. So like
different things could be happening at different times.
Like they're not only in different classrooms, but like each classroom is like a different dimension. So they, even if they were like on the same floor technically of this building, they're not in the same dimension, so they wouldn't like cross paths with each other.
Which is really fucked up by itself, because they're like, you'll notice like throughout the games, that's other themes. Like, so in chapter 1 there's candles all over the place, and they're like, oh, it has to be the class rep, which is of course Ayumi. So she leaves one of the things is that she's known for her love of horror, and she always has like candles.
Yeah, she's like an occult kind of otaku kind of person. She loves all the occult things.
So they're like, oh, class rep must have been here, which is another thing, but they never see her throughout their chapter. But of course she had been there at one point, because her candles are all over the place. But of course they know that they can never meet her because they're in that enclosed space. Again, throughout the game, it's just kind of letting you build relationships with these characters throughout all chapters of the game. You get to know them better, and of course, it makes the horror all the more horrifying, because you have to each watch them either go crazy or die, which is really sad.
Right, like the madness can like overtake them, or like the despair that they're feeling.
Yeah, they discover that too. That if you let your panic or your basically the overall feeling oh my god, we're gonna die, and you're just like majorly freaking out. The school takes advantage of that, and basically twists that horrible feeling to the point that you either kill someone too or you kill yourself.
Yeah,
which has happened to a lot of the other students.
Right.
Class 29 is not the only class that got sucked in.
Yeah, there's like different, because you like throughout the game, like you can find different like student IDs of other students that have been there, and like maybe you find it next to like a rotting corpse with like a school uniform that you don't recognize it 'cause it's from some other school, or like there's like a pile of bones or something with another school ID. So yeah, they kind of discover like
everywhere.
You kind of once you kind of see like the gameplay or play the game, like yeah, you can kind of see like, oh yeah, there's definitely been like lots of different groups of people from, you know, all over the country, I guess.
There. Like they're all over. Like they've been transferred over there. Like they've been basically transported over there, and that's how they discover they're not the only ones there. But there is a possibility of them meeting up with their other classmates. The game kind of builds you up with these characters. Don't want to spoil too much, but I feel like I should because it's like.
I mean, again, like, we can talk spoilers. I mean, we just have to make sure we say, oh, we're gonna spoil parts of the game. I mean, we already said that OVAs are like all the bad endings. So
yeah,
like,
the OVAs are all
like you're gonna get spoiled if you watch that after this. Like you know.
Again, we follow Naomi and Seiko throughout chapter 1. They discover, of course, that they are in enclosed spaces. There's bodies everywhere from like different ages. They discover that, which freaks them both out because they're like, what the hell? The whole point of their chapter basically was kind of just, again, it builds you up with these two. Like
it's kind of, yeah, it's like an introduction of like, oh, this is like
what the game is like.
Yeah, this is what the game's like. Here's your tutorial, basically. And then the chapter ends on like some disturbing shit.
Right, yeah, which we will spoil because it is part of the.
Yeah, it's part of the game, and this is the first chapter. It's like again like the tutorial, so you know they're pulling out all the stops even from the first chapter. So
they are. They give you a false sense of security because everything's kind of relatively normal. It's just the again. It's like the beginning chapter, so you're not really doing much. You're kind of just going around the school, seeing if you find an exit. Of course, some stuff happens to Naomi in the infirmary, which is one of the big things we discover later in the game. It was important. They go to rest in the infirmary after finding the key. Naomi had sprained her ankle previously. They're there. Unfortunately, they hear Yuka yelling, and they're like, "Oh, well, we didn't find her the first time." So they're like, so Seiko basically tells Naomi, "You can stay here and rest in the infirmary. I'm gonna go see if I can find Yuka because we heard her scream." And of course Naomi's like, I don't think we should, but of course they split up anyway. Naomi gets attacked by the spirit of the infirmary. She almost dies, the spirit taunting her after she escapes, which in itself, like when you play that part of the game like I did, oh my god, I freaked out. Because you're timed, and like when you try and escape, like there's like little panels of the floor that just go underneath you, and you're like, oh no.
Right, like it's forcing you to go a certain way, and it's like, oh shit. Like if you go the wrong way, like you're fucked.
Yeah, you're fucked. You're gonna die. And of course, Naomi does make it out if you choose the right thing. The bad ending for that one, of course, the spirit fucking kills you.
You die.
You'll die. And
you have to start over.
You'll have to start that part of the game over if you didn't save.
I mean, yeah, I feel like with some of these certain endings, like you start from when. Like before you can like die, so like the game isn't like that cruel to you. Like you can, you know, if you die at a certain part, like you can just start from before that part happens.
Yeah, this game isn't.
So yeah, it's like it's not like that cruel, but I feel like once you get to the end of the game, like some of the choices that you do make, sometimes it's like okay, like you have to go back like 3 chapters or whatever, like to fix it.
Bad thing though. Like, you need to make sure that the choices that you're making up until Chapter 5... So Chapter 5 is where it screws you over, right? They're like, no, we gave you some leeway, but if you messed up in Chapter 3 or 4...
Right, if you don't do a certain thing, like...
You're not going to get certain endings, you're not going to get certain, like, achievements and shit, which is, again, really sucks. Like, if you don't do, I think, Chapter 4, 5, there's, like, certain things you need to do to get the good ending for Chapter 5. And if you don't do it, you're gonna get the bad end.
Right, but like throughout the game, yeah, it's not as cruel as that. Like, if you die in like a part where you're supposed to run away or something, like they let you do it again. Like,
yeah, they'll let you do it again because funny enough, one of the achievements is to get the bad ending, so they'll let you. Like,
right.
play it over, which I found really weird. I was like, okay. Naomi wants to apologize. She knows she's being a kid about, like, she's kind of being a little bit childish about it. Like, she knows that, like, she's basically letting the stress of the situation get to her. Because, again, there's, like, dead bodies everywhere. And Seiko, you know, she's had a tough life at home, but she's trying to be optimistic, right? She's just like, no, we can get through this, and we just got to keep upbeat. And, of course, that's what they fight about. When they separate, the chapter ends on, like, the biggest holy shit moment. Is that Naomi, of course, looks for Seiko, and they're trying to find her. They go back to the bathroom they had visited previously, only to find that Seiko has hung herself and she is dying. Of course, we have to try and save her, but unfortunately, Naomi is too late, and the chapter ends with Seiko having been strangled. Basically, she died by hanging.
She was hanged. So, and you see it too, like, you see her body, like, in the stall. It's just kind of like, oh, shit.
You get the CG for that too, which is horrifying by itself. The before and after too, which is really horrifying.
And I mean, also, the other, like, creepy part is the voice acting, like, because they scream and, like, you know, they're choking and shit, and it's like, ugh, it's really disturbing. But that means it's good. Like, it's good voice acting.
It is, yeah. The voice, like, I recommend doing with the voice acting on, because, oh my god, like, the voice acting sold it for me. Like, that scene was horrifying, because, like, I was, like, watching them, and I'm like, oh, you guys are best friends, and you guys are so cute. And then that happened. I was like, oh god, I'm actually hearing her being, like, she's suffocating.
Yeah, like,
fucking rope, and I'm like, no, please.
Sometimes just listening to it is, like, disturbing enough. Like, sometimes you don't need the visuals to be, like, freaked out. And then, of course, you move on to Chapter 2,
and of course, which opens up they with Ayumi, Kishinuma, and the teacher, Miss Yui. They have heard Naomi screaming from the previous chapter, and they're like, "Oh God, Ayumi's having a panic attack." Of course, because she's like, "Oh my God, I heard Nakashima, I heard her," and they're just like, "No, you need to calm the fuck down because you're hyperventilating. Chill out." Of course, Miss Yui goes out to try and find what happened. She gets into some trouble with the spirit. She left to clarify, she left Kishinuma and Ayumi in the classroom that Seiko and Naomi visited previously, which was really weird. Again, the whole thing about the closed spaces is that even if they visit a previously looking place, like it happened at a different time. It's really weird. Like you'd have to play the game to understand what I'm saying, but of course, they stay in the classroom. Miss Yu gets in some trouble with a spirit who ends up crushing her, like, lower bot. Like, we don't really know if she's dead or not, but, like,
yeah, like it falls on her, and it's like there's
a bunch of sharp.
She's had, like, broken ribs, and, you know, like she's injured pretty badly.
So it leaves that ominous, and of course, Ayumi and Kishinuma are like, well, Ayumi mainly is like, we gotta go find the teacher. Something bad has happened to the teacher. We gotta go. And of course, Kishinuma's not gonna let her do anything by herself, so he's like, fuck it, I'll go. So the main chapter is them kind of looking for any of their classmates, Miss Yui mainly, throughout their chapter. They get more... that chapter was so rowdy, chapter 2. Mainly because there's like a lot of endings there's like a lot of bad endings you can get on that one. But it ends... It's just like, I don't know how to describe the second chapter, but... Of course, we get to know Kishinuma and Ayumi a little bit more. Kishinuma is seen as, like, some kind of, I guess he's kind of like, he seems like he's trouble, but he's not.
It's like, he looks like a delinquent, but he's not actually a delinquent.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, right? He's just, like, we get to know him and Ayumi, like, he considers her a good friend.
He's always, like, kind of, like, having to go with her on her bullshit.
Yeah, pretty much. He, like, just follows her to make sure she doesn't do anything stupid, but he's also not, like, stopping her either.
Yeah.
And to clarify, like, he has, like, a crush on her.
Right, yeah, like, well, yeah, like, it's pretty obvious he's got, like, a crush on her.
Yeah, we discover in the chapter that, of course, Kishinuma...
But she has a crush on,
Satoshi.
Yeah, and like... What's his name? Kishinuma? Is that his name? Kishinuma. Yeah, he's kind of like, alright, whatever. Like, he's kind of like over it. Like, he knows that Ayumi likes Satoshi, but he's like, yeah, whatever.
He won't pursue her, mainly because he's like, she likes Satoshi. I'm not gonna I am not going to touch that. You know what I mean? He's a good person. He won't.
Right, he's okay with whatever she decides. If she wants to be with him or somebody else, like he's like, alright, it's fine.
Yeah, he's that person. Oh yeah, chapter 2. Now I remember how chapter 2 ended. Was it chapter 2 or chapter 3 where they ended up finding Mayu? I want to say it was chapter 3 or 2. I feel like it's 2 chapter.
I don't remember. I've only seen one playthrough of this game. I've never played it.
They meet another character named Naho Sayanoki. She was a spiritual medium that Ayumi idolizes. They find her spirit wandering around, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well." So just to backtrack a bit, the school has a story about Heavenly Hosts where which is the scary story that Ayumi was telling. Besides why the principal committed suicide was the fact that 4 students were found murdered in the basement of the school. It was like that story was like going around, like they basically were found like mutilated almost beyond recognition.
Yeah, and there was like one survivor.
And of course, Naho was investigating that story. Naho basically tells Ayumi and Kishinuma, "Hey, the killer's in here too, by the way." And they're like, "Oh fuck." And they're like, "Well, the reason, like, well, they meet her a little bit later, but they find Mayu Suzumoto in the infirmary, surrounded by the child spirits who were killed. They're not letting her go though." And they're like, "Well, crap. What do we do?" And of course, that's when they find Naho, and they're like, "Well, you gotta appease the spirits, and you know there are killers in here. Maybe if you find a confession, maybe that'll help." So of course that part of the chapter is them trying to look for kind of an appeasement.
Yeah, for something to make them stop. Because Mayu's the girl who's transferring away.
Yeah,
she's
Mayu's
the one who's moving away.
And of course she's surrounded by like 2 spirits. They're not letting her go, and of course they have to find, like, even if you didn't like meet Naho, like the spirits wouldn't let her go, and they're just like keeping her there, and they're like, well, I guess that the game forces you to like do shit. Like you're not gonna be able to save her otherwise. So of course, that's where Ayumi and Kishinuma kind of are going around the school. They're discovering new info, and of course about the whole, hey, the killer's there too. The kids of the spirits that died, they're there too.
They're very like vengeful. Like they're not gonna let you just do whatever you want. They're pretty angry.
Any spirit that has died within the confines of Heavenly Host, if it was like super super bad, like the feelings that they had during they died will become very mean spirits to you. Like you'll see them in like little red spots. Some spirits don't have that color, like the children's spirits do, like the 4 that originally died. They're just, after so many years of being a spirit, the madness has just that long period of being a spirit, and the way they died has drove them insane. So they'll kill anybody or anything. Like they don't have a conscience anymore. They're not aware of themselves anymore. So they kill indiscriminately. There are some spirits who are like really chill, and you'll see them like in little blue spots, and they'll try and help you out, which we discovered in the first chapter.
Right, because some of
helping out.
Yeah, some of those are like, you can kind of infer those are like previous students that have like died there like through this like ritual or whatever. Like they're trying to help out, like, you know, people who are in the same situation that they were in before they died.
Yeah, so they just want to help, and of course they're the blue spirits. Unfortunately, anyone who dies within, like any other spirits that die, any other soul that basically just dies in Heavenly Host, their spirit is forced to relive the pain of the moment of their death. And of course, throughout the chapter, they kind of try and figure out how to appease the 2 girl spirits, and they kind of find the pieces. Ayumi's kind of pissed off at the killer because they're like, they find like this doll supposedly that the killer had, and they're like, both Kishinuma and Ayumi are like, this is kind of bullshit because this doesn't really sound legit.
Right, like they find this doll that like talks. It says like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what I've done," but it doesn't sound like genuine. They're kind of like, this doesn't sound like the person is actually sorry. They're just saying that to like mock us or whatever. I mean, the doll sounds creepy anyway, but
yeah, the doll is fucking creepy. But of course, they do eventually find the doll, and Ayumi and Kishinuma are like, this does not sound genuine, but I guess this is the item. We're gonna go back to the infirmary, see if we can help out Mayu. Of course, the spirits hear the doll, but they do not react as Naho said they would. They instead kind of like they turn basically bad shit, and they end up killing Mayu.
Yeah, they pull her out of the room, and you're kind of like, what the fuck? And then you just hear her screaming, and then you hear like a gross,
you hear crashing, and then you hear like
a crashing sound, and like a gross squishy noise. It's really disgusting.
Only to find that her body is basically like plastered against the wall, and you do I shouldn't say funny, but oddly enough, you see her body in the first chapter.
Right. Like, yeah,
Seiko and Naomi
they pass by it and they're like, ugh, what is that? That's so creepy and gross. Like, they don't know what it is. And then you find out in chapter 2, like, what it actually is. Like, oh, it was their friend the whole time. It's her, you know. Yeah, basically, like, her body just combusted, like, when it hit the wall. It doesn't even look like a body. It's just like
it's not a body. It's literally just her.
It's just like flesh.
Yeah,
in a big pile on the floor.
And on the wall.
And the wall, yeah.
And that's where the chapter ends. Basically, they're like, holy shit! And of course, Ayumi is losing her ever-loving mind because they legit just saw their friend die. Because of course, Ayumi's like freaking out. They're like, oh my god, Suzumoto just died, and she's kind of flipping her shit. She separates from Yoshiki and, of course, Kishinuma, and he's gonna go after her, of course, but he is basically bashed in on the head.
Yeah, like some guy comes and like knocks him out by hitting him on the head, and he like drags him away, and you're just kind of like, whoa, what just happened? Who was that? So it's kind of inferred like, okay, that's the killer. Like, the killer caught up with them, and he got Yoshiki. And so he apparently got caught by the killer. So we don't know what happened to him once the chapter's over.
Yeah, we don't see him for a little bit. Chapter 3 kind of opens up with some characters from a different school. They're being chased down. Fukuroi and, what's her name? And not Emmy. I forgot her damn name now. Mitsuki from Bakuen. I can't pronounce the school's name, but they're from a different school. They opens up with those two running. So it's kind of like split, where we kind of see these other characters just to infer that, hey, there's other people.
Yeah, they're not the only ones that are like actively also alive. There at the same time.
Like alive and stuff that are there. Of course, they're going through some stuff. Mitsuki and Fukuroi, of course, they do not live because we do see their corpses later.
Right.
In the game, of course, we know that they die. The person who smashed Yoshiki on the head was also their killer. It goes on. We go back to Naomi. She's kind of having her moment in the bathroom with Seiko's corpse, and she's still crying. She meets Naho, and of course, Naho's just like being fucked up to her. Basically, like, oh yeah, your friend died. Oops. And you're like, dude.
Yeah, Naho's kind of a crazy bitch. I mean, you kind of find out why she's fucking like that, but even then, like, I did not like that character.
I don't like this bitch.
She's a fucking liar, man.
Just to like clarify, I should have guys told you this, but the charm that Ayumi used.
Oh right, she found it. She found it on Naho's like blog.
Naho's blog, because Naho's a occult writer. She's like a blogger.
She's like a famous occult like blogger. So that's where Ayumi found like the Sachiko ritual
charm.
Yeah, charm thing. And she just followed the instructions that were there on the blog.
So I should have clarified that. But yeah, so Naho basically talks to Naomi, and is basically like, oh yeah, you guys are separated, and she's basically talking about how the spirits will go nuts and this, that, and the other. And of course, she's not being very helpful.
Right.
She's just basically telling us what we all know about spirits, that, oh, depending on how they die, they can be either vengeful or they can be helpful. Eventually this school will make them go crazy, and your friend went crazy, maybe, I guess. And Naomi's just there like, why are you talking to me? But this game, the third chapter kind of like splits. Naomi, we don't really get any new info, because again, we kind of get that info with that Naho gives us in the previous chapter. Halfway in the chapter, we are reunited with Moji, the siblings, of course, Yuka and Satoshi. It's kind of the same thing, like right off the bat, they meet the spirit, and they're just like, okay, we got the gist of it. We're in this place. Okay, we're gonna see if we can find our friends. And the spirit's like, do you, bro? Anxiety. I felt like chapter 3 was one of them.
Why?
Because there's like a point in the game, right, where it's Satoshi and Yuka are kind of going around the school. You actually meet one of the other spirits, and you're just like, oh no. You just get this sense of dread that something bad's gonna happen to them because they're like kind of going around as young as she is, just like, okay, and he's trying not to freak her out. During the end of it, you guys go to the bathroom. They get separated though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nothing too gruesome happens in this chapter, other than of course the first few murders happening in the first part of the game. We're just getting a little bit more information. And chapter 3, but of course we are reunited with Satoshi and Yuka, but they get separated towards the end of the chapter.
Right, because they're trying to get to like the other side of the school.
Yeah, because there's like
they're trapped. They're like trapped in one part of the school. So they like at the end of chapter 3, like they finally find a way to get to the other like wing of the school, and when they get there. When they get there, that's when Yuka and Satoshi get separated.
Yeah, pretty much. They have to find the other side of the wing. Yeah. And they get separated, and Yuka's like, well, fuck. And now the rest of the chapter 3 is like Satoshi trying to find Yuka. Yuka, unfortunately, is like, how do I describe this? She kind of gets into some trouble in the game herself, where, well, again, they get separated in chapter 3. We go back and... Well, basically, we're hanging out with Satoshi and Yuka for the better part of chapter 3. They're trying to find a way to get to the second wing, that kind of thing. We also reunite briefly with Morishige, who is really close to Mayu, and he's looking for her.
Yeah, we already know that she's dead.
We know that
Mayu's dead, and he's not gonna find her alive if he finds her.
Yeah, well, like we find funny. Again, I shouldn't say funny. We reunite with Morishige by the infirmary where Mayu is.
Alright, like ironically enough, he does come across her. He doesn't know it's her. You know, her flesh pile, remains, and he takes a picture of it because he's kind of like fascinated with like stuff like that. And we don't know that until later, though. Like we learned that he kind of likes that stuff, but yeah, like unbeknownst to him, he did find her. It's just he found her dead body.
She did. She was all she did.
Yeah, so
he doesn't know that.
Yeah, he's
So, but of course it's only for a little bit that we're reunited with Morishige. We find him next to Mayu's remains. Yuka's kind of freaking out because she's like, I'm pretty sure he's just taking a picture and that's what was happening. And I'm like, And of course, Satoshi wants to give his friend the benefit of the doubt, so he's like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe we don't know what's going on. That kind of thing. And you're like, bro, no, dude.
He being weird.
But of course, throughout the chapter, we do that. Eventually, again, like we said, they're trying to find a way to the second part of the wing of the school. They get separated, and now Satoshi basically has to try and find Yuka. Of course, he finds other people there. Like I said previously, what I meant to say was that we find the other kids from the other schools, Bakuen Academy. We reunite with Mitsuki from the early part of the chapter, but of course she has gone pretty much insane and eventually dies. Satoshi meets her and she's like, kind of like, oh, I can't trust anybody anymore. And you're like, what the fuck happened to you?
Right.
Like, she's alive, but she lost her mind, but she'll like die later in the chapter. I think she gets bludgeoned or something, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rest of chapter 3 is basically like Satoshi having to find Yuka, because Yuka gets separated, and of course she, when she does get separated, she's like, I guess I gotta find my big brother, and then we meet a brand new character, also from Bakuen Academy, Yuya Kizami.
Yeah, so she kind of like decides to, okay, I guess I'll stick with this guy. He'll help me find my brother.
You know, it's at first we're like, Kizami, you're good. And
I know, you're like, wow, oh, this guy's so nice. He's like, with this hot,
so sweet
this hot guy is so nice. Cause he attractive, man. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, that does not seem to be the case when we go further into the next chapter.
In the chapter, yeah, like it's actually chapter 3. So the chapter 3 gives you like a lot of different characters, not just like like the first half of that chapter they get separated and that stuff. We go with Yuka for a little bit part of it. Of course, she meets Kizami, and they're trying to like, literally the best, like, as bad as it's gonna sound, Yuka just needs to pee.
Yeah, she has to, yeah. Because they try to, they find the bathroom, but then they find a bathroom, and she goes in there, and she's like, I can't do it. She's, like, too scared.
All the bathrooms they either find are either destroyed or there's, like, bodies in them.
Yeah, and she's like, she just can't do it. Even though Satoshi tells her, like, just, like, go, like, in the corner, like...
Yeah, Satoshi's like, just use a corner, dude. We don't have that time.
Like, I don't have time for you to, like...
I'll hold it in. Please find a better one. I'm like, dude, you don't know if there's gonna be a better one.
Yeah, and then that's also like a reason why they're looking for like the other wing, because like, well, maybe there's a bathroom there that like isn't all fucked up that you can use. Yeah, that's literally
one of the reasons, because Yuka's too much of a spoiled little brat to be like
in
the corner and like grit her teeth. Like she's actually, so I say she's the little sister. She's actually not that much younger.
No, she's like 14. Apparently she's like 14, but she still acts like she's like a 9-year-old child. Like she's like she's
never had to grow up.
Right. So like, and she gets so she gets so fucking annoying. like cuz she has that cute little like, oh, Oni-chan kind of voice, and it's just like, oh my god, please shut up. You're like 14. Like, please stop.
I'm right, like, fuck, you're 14, dude.
You're not an 8-year-old. It's not cute anymore.
Like, one of the things, right? That's right. One of the things that got me frustrated. I was like, dude, just pee.
I know, just pee in the corner. Just pee in the corner. Like, the bathroom's already fucked up. Like, you can't even wash your hands in the sink. Like, just go.
Right? Like, just go, dude. Like, don't let it bother you. Just like, get the hell over it. Like, you're in a bad place where, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of bodies everywhere. Like, I understand, like, there's a bunch of bodies everywhere, but like, if you gotta go, you gotta go, dude.
It's not the ideal.
Right? It's not the ideal.
It's not the ideal place to like pee. I mean, at least she shouldn't have to like. At least she just has to pee.
Right? Like, fuck, dude. Like, that's literally the rest of the part of the chapter is you having to pee. As bad as it sounds like.
I know, there's like, there's like several times where like Satoshi has to stop and be like, and like actually like ask her like, do you still have to like pee? Like, like, are you uncomfortable? It's like, just do it. And we are back. So, we went and took a bathroom break, unlike Yuka, who just holds it in and doesn't pee in the corner. And even when she meets up with Kizami, this new dude from this other school, she still has to pee, and like he even helps her like find a fucking bathroom, because like they lift like the curse or whatever on this bathroom.
Yeah, like you have to find like the game gives you like, I make it sound like it's straightforward. It's not. Like during parts of the chapters, you actually have to find items to open doors. Like you have to go to this classroom to get a key. You got to go to this place to get a crystal that opens up these seals on a door. You got to go find another key somewhere. Oh, you got to go find this. Like you're doing a lot in this game.
So then they find a bathroom and they open it, and she's in there. And that's when she takes a little bit, and then we get this other scene
with Kizami. He's actually reunited with one of his classmates, Kurosaki. And he's like, oh my god, you're alive. My best friend's alive. And we're like, Kurosaki, you seem pretty chill, dude. Right. And only to find in this pivotal moment in the chapter that Kizami be crazy.
Yeah, he's fucked up. But it's not that the place made him fucked up. Like, he was already like a crazy dude before they even got into this school. Like, we see a flashback and everything.
And it's like, yeah, so Kizami goes ahead and just like straight up stabs Kurosaki.
Yeah, and then like kicks him down a hole.
Yeah, pretty much pushes him down. We do find Kurosaki's body in other chapters though. Like
yeah, yeah.
And other classmates from Bakuen that say Kizami's name, and like it never, funny enough, it never clicked for me when I was playing that part of the game. I was like, Kizami, that sounds so familiar. And it was only like after I was like trying to pee for Yuka, I was like, wait a minute. Oh fuck, this fucker killed his classmates. The bodies told me so. And I was like, well shit. And at that point he'd already killed Kurosaki, and I was like, oh. I was like, right. Oh, yeah, we found your body in like a previous chapter. I was like, I should have remembered that.
And then, Yuka comes out and she's did she pee? I can't remember. Doesn't she just
pee.
She didn't pee because then she I mean, we're talking about this girl doesn't pee, but like, but she comes out because she kind of like heard what was going on and she's like, oh shit, like this dude is crazy.
Yeah, she does eventually, but of course it ends. But part of chapter 3 ends with, of course, Kizami pushing Kurosaki down a hole after he like fucking stabs him. It goes back to Satoshi, and of course he's looking for Yuka. He finds Naho now, and Naho's just like, oh yeah, she's giving him the rundown again, and she's basically telling him shit. She's not being helpful, you guys. She's basically saying stuff we already know, but of course the other characters don't know. Kind of a deal. It's like, oh, you're in this space, this, that, and the other. And
they really like to hammer that in while you're playing the game, like.
Yeah, the whole point of that is just to be like, you can never reunite with your friends, so you're fucked. And they're like, dude. Chapter 4 opens up with like 2 flashbacks. One with Seiko and her brother Yu, where he's kind of lamenting like, oh, it's this late, and where is my sister? This should have been home by now. And I'm like, part of me is like, your sister's dead, dude. I'm sorry.
Right, it's kind of like, oh, sorry to break it to you, kid, but you're never gonna see her again.
Nick, you're never gonna see her again, dude. And of course, we get another one with Mayu. We find out in this chapter that her family is moving away because her father took another job somewhere else, and now they're going with him. And the mom is basically like, we should have just told him no, and this, that, and the other. And Mayu's like, no, it's okay, because Dad has another job, this, that, and the other. And of course, they're gonna go. And it opens up with her in Heavenly Host, and of course that's the moment she saw the kids and she follows them, and it ends that little flashback.
Right, like we got the flashbacks of like the 2 dead characters.
Yeah, pretty much. Just to like hammer it in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, yep, they had some. Yeah, Mayu's gonna move away, and because like they tell you earlier in the game, or like when you look at their little introductions or whatever, because you do that before you start actually playing. Like Seiko's like, she's basically like the mom of the house because the mom's dead, and she has like other siblings, and her dad works all the time, so she's always like the one like taking care of things, like cooking food, cooking the meals. Yeah, like she makes the meals for everybody, like laundry, does all that stuff.
She cooks, she cleans, make sure the kids have their baths, that stuff. Like she's basically the mother of the house.
Yeah,
essentially. And of course that's when it just hammers in that, oh, they have family and loved ones waiting for them, and you're like, yeah,
it's kind of like, well, sorry, you guys are fucked. They're dead.
Like, they're dead. I'm sorry, you. And of course, we go back to our good guy Satoshi, and of course he's still looking for Yuka. He's been put into a different dimension because Naho's a bitch that way. Because at the end of the chapter, she kind of just like used her spiritual powers and just like yeeted him into another dimension.
Yeah.
Within the school. And again, she's not helpful, guys. She's not. I'm sorry, she's not. And of course, we're following Satoshi. He's trying to find Yuka. He instead finds Naomi. And it's not good, guys, because Naomi has gone. Like, at first it starts out, like, you hear Seiko and Naomi talking to each other, because he finds the bathroom that they were in chapter 1, and he hears them talking. And, of course, we as the player are like, Seiko's dead, dude. Why is she talking?
Yeah.
And like, oh, no, dude. And then, of course, we discover that Naomi has hung herself. And the choice is we have to try and, like, in that pivotal moment, we have to try and save Naomi from, like, strangling. Because if we don't, the bad end for that one is that she fucking gets strangled. Like, she dies. If we don't make the right choices, she'll die from the rope. But, of course, when we do make the right choices, she gets to live. So she also discovers in the stall next to her was Seiko, and he's like, oh my god. And, of course, they help get her down from the noose, and they kind of just, like, sit her there. Like, they can't take her with them. Kind of a deal. They're like, well, Satoshi promises Naomi, hey, look, we can't take her with us, but we'll come back for her, and hopefully we can get her out, that kind of thing. And Naomi's reluctant to leave Seiko there because, of course, that's like she died, but they do eventually, and they go try to find Yuka, and they're exploring the school, all that jazz. And of course, there's more bodies and like there's like random shit everywhere. Like, we go back to Yuka and Kizami. Yuka, of course, has not peed.
Yep, she's still holding it in because she just can't pee in the corner.
And of course, Kizami kind of goes into the bathroom to discover like why she didn't go. There's like bodies in the bathroom or some shit.
Yeah, like she tried to open the door, but there was like a body blocking it. Like she can't open the door.
Yeah, there's bodies like hanging themselves or something. Just pee in the corner.
They don't care. They don't care if you pee in the corner. No one's gonna get mad at you.
I'm pretty sure their spirits are like wandering now.
I'm surprised.
Spirits don't stay.
I'm surprised up to that point she just didn't pee herself anyway because she's so scared.
Right? Like these were all like girls that had been like hung or something like that. But yeah, like they're like there's bodies being hung like from like the ceiling or some shit in the bathrooms. If it were me, dude, I would have been. If I had a legit real talk, I would have been scared like out of my mind, and I probably would have peed myself. You could pee
same.
yourself, guys.
Doesn't she do that later though?
She does. Only because of Kizami though.
Yeah. So I mean, I get she does pee eventually. She pees herself, but like, you could have avoided that if you just went in the corner.
Of course, Kizami is found to be a bit of a.
Right. That's when he kind of goes all psycho on her and like starts chasing after her, and she kind of has to run away from him. Well, not kinda. You have to make her run away from him.
Yeah, you gotta run away.
Because if he catches you, then you're fucking dead.
Yeah, you get a wrong end, but we don't see that in this chapter. I think it's like the next one.
Oh, is it?
No, I'm pretty sure I think it's chapter 4 or 5. No, it's 5. Because it's 5. I feel like 5 was like the longest chapter because chapter 4 was like split up to where like he is basically revealed that he's kind of psycho a little bit to us. We kind of like we're jumping within a lot of characters within chapter 4 because chapter 4 is like the bombshell of information, right? Where I think the chapter mainly focuses on like towards the end of it with Kishinuma and Ayumi, because they're like, well, why didn't it work with the doll? We could have saved Suzumoto or Mayu, and they're like, well, now what do we do? And they're like, well, we're kind of on this spree now, we should probably try and help the other spirits or something like that. So they are literally like legit, they're on a mission to find the tongues of the students, because when they were murdered, their tongues were like removed.
Yeah, so
bodies.
their tongues are missing, so we have to we have to appease the spirit. You have to appease the spirits, so basically you have to look for their tongues, like they're hidden all over the school. Yeah, it's really it's disturbing because like you'll find them like under floorboards and stuff, and it's just like a little like burlap sack.
One was like in the pool in like the school's pool. One was like in a weird baggie somewhere on the floor, and then one was found in a floorboard underneath Mayu's corpse, which is really disturbing.
Yeah,
and I don't know if Sachiko just did it on purpose. Which is another spirit in the school. She's the survivor of the massacre. But you're like, why is she there though if she survived? Like she's like a little kid, and you see her spirit. So that's another mystery that we don't have, but we have to figure out. Well, I say we, but Yoshiki and Ayumi have to figure out the mystery. Like, why are the spirits here? Like, maybe if they appease them, maybe we can make it better, kind of a deal. So throughout the chapter, like they're kind of figuring out what to do. And of course, they do return the body parts to the right spirit, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
They find out through Yu, I think her name was, one of the child spirits, because this chapter 4 bounces within a lot of characters. Like, I don't want to spoil that ending real quick. But, like, again, we kind of bounce out with a whole bunch of different characters. Like, we go back and forth with them, because we reunite with Satoshi and Naomi at one point, and we have like a little side thing, like a really cute scene with Seiko and Naomi, with her spirit at least, which is really sad. But it mainly focuses on Yoshiki and Ayumi trying to find the body parts. Like they go all around the school just to, like, find the spirits, return their body parts to them. One of the spirits, Yu is, I think her name was Yu, calms down enough to like. She transports Yoshiki and Ayumi back to their like original school, like to their own world, and they're like, "Whoa, what the hell?" And Yu's like, "Well, because you guys did this, the connection's weak, so you guys are back." But
right, you guys were able to come back, but everyone else is still trapped there.
Yeah, everyone else is still trapped, and of course we see that the school, like the Dimension isn't happy that you escaped without having done like the right thing, so it's trying to pull them back. But you explains that she was like, that's not part of the problem, you know what I mean? And so he was like, what the fuck? So you goes ahead and like enters, or like at least gives her the memory of what happened the day she died, which of course he was one of the original that were found in the basement, like killed.
Right.
Different things happened to each of the kids. What happened to you was that she was stabbed in the eye multiple times.
Yeah.
Like one eye multiple times, to the point that eventually her eye became soup-like, and she was just left there to die like that. And then of course her tongue was cut out after she died, so she was left to suffer like that. So Ayumi is there. She's bound.
Yeah, she like she's like, yeah, she like experiences what happened
with you, what happened the day of the murder. And she's like, oh god, she's hearing the other kids get murdered, and she's like, oh god, it's me next. It's me. Well, technically it's not her, but it's the memory that you had of the day she died. And of course, Ayumi can't differentiate right now because she's like freaking the fuck out. Like, oh god, oh god, oh god. And we discover that, again, we go back to the day the murder happened. Yuki, there we go. Her name was Yuki. Why did I say you? Well, because Seiko's brother was named Yu. The little girl spirit's name is Yuki. Little Yuki explains to Ayumi what's going on. Ayumi's experiencing a memory of what happened the day they all died. We discover that supposedly what the newspapers tell us throughout the game was that it was the gym teacher who killed the kids, and he was arrested. He later committed suicide. He's there in the school with them, and we were made to believe he was the killer. And it turns out, when the blindfold gets taken off of Yuki, we see that it was not, in fact, the gym teacher. It was actually Sachiko, who was supposedly the survivor. She was the murderer the entire time, and that was the big reveal for chapter 4. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, so the girl Sachiko, who they did the ritual for, her name's in the ritual, she's the real killer.
And that just like bomb drop. That just like mic drop. And you're like, holy shit. And that's where it ends, basically, where like we see the murders happening and all that jazz. Like, well, the main part of it, really. And of course, again, like that's happening again. It's bouncing back and forth because the gym teacher, Yoshikazu was his name. We go back to Naomi and Satoshi, and they're reading that information. We've heard it before, where like, oh, it was the gym teacher who did it. He killed all the students, and they were mutilated. It was horrible, all that stuff. And he was found with the murder weapon, and then of course
he's basically like framed for the murders.
Yeah, he was framed for Sachiko's murders. We don't understand why until chapter 5, though. Like, because it kind of gets you wondering, like, why would he be with her and all that stuff? Like, it makes no sense, kind of a deal. And you're just like, you find out why, though, because the weird thing about Yoshikazu is that they tell you in the game was that he was kind of special needs. Like, it's implied that he had he was special needs.
Mm-hmm.
So they just made him, like, I guess the gym teacher, or like not gym teacher, like he was something. But he was there at the school, and he would work. The kids loved him because he was childlike himself, all that jazz.
Yeah, isn't he's like a janitor or something, or?
I think so. He was a janitor because he was the principal's son. Of course,
yeah.
He was because again, he was. It's implied that he was special needs. And if I'm wrong, by all means, correct me, guys. But he of course, he was working there, and the kids loved him. And,
right.
They found it weird. that.
Yeah, he's hanging. Yeah, like, right. But then he's also, but then it's also like, well, he's like a scapegoat because it's like, oh, well, he wasn't all there, so
maybe he snapped and this, that, the other, so the blame fell on him. Of course, he later committed suicide while he was arrested because I guess he just couldn't take it, and he just committed suicide. He hung himself. And of course, that's where chapter 4 ends. Chapter 5, we are back with Yuka and Kizami for part again. Like chapters 4 and 5 are like a lot of information. Well, we open back up again with like the stabbing scene happening, and then of course we're like back with Yuka and Kizami. He goes in there, and of course that's where the chase scene happens. Because Yuka's like, "Hey, dude, like, what's going on?" And of course he kind of flips on her, and he goes to chase her. Like he's on the warpath to like kill her. and that part of the game is her like running and all that stuff. Eventually, he does catch up to her. At one point, he does catch up to her. He kicks her in the stomach so hard that she basically falls on the floor and she pees herself.
Hey, man, at least she peed.
At least she peed.
Well, I mean, at that point, I guess he kicked her where her bladder is, and just she couldn't hold it anymore.
She couldn't help it. Yeah, she couldn't help it anymore.
I mean, girl, it's your fault that your underwear is all soaked with pee now.
Right? Like, why didn't you go in the damn? I understand, dude. Like, I get it.
Right? If you're scared, like maybe you could just super hold it in or whatever. But there's a limit, man.
We go through that part of the game. Yuka's on the run from Kizami. That part ends where she's kind of like on the floor. She's just having like literally gotten kicked so hard that she peed. We go back. We reunite with Morishige. He is still looking for Mayu. We discover in like other parts of the game, in this part of the chapter at least, he's kind of, again, like we were saying earlier, he has a kind of a fetish. It's not that he has a fetish, it's more like when things becomes too stressful, he kind of likes looking at other things to distract him, unfortunately, because there's only like dead bodies here to distract him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening. Like, he's not really like, he knows what he's doing is wrong. Like, don't like he's not a complete psycho. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but he can't stop himself because, again, he understands that even though this is misery, he's like, another person's misery is what's bringing him joy, kind of a deal. He's not like Kizami crazy. Like, yeah, he's his own crazy and stuff, but he has his good points, mainly for the fact that he loves Mayu. He is in love with her. Just like Mayu and Morishige are in love with each other. They just never got together.
And they never will.
Sadly, they never will. Because Mayu does, in Book of Shadows, in the next game, they clarify that, no, Morishige and Mayu were in love with each other. They just never told each other.
Well, maybe they can be together. They can be together in death.
They are together in death, sadly. They are together in death. But of course, it goes back to Morishige. He's having a flashback. He's kind of like having a mental breakdown, but he's remembering Mayu. He's like, no, I have to find Mayu, and when we get to the real world, I gotta delete all these fucking pictures I took of all these goddamn bodies. Or he justifies it by saying that they'll tell the police, basically, like, oh, all these people are dead, kind of a deal. Again, he's just trying to keep his sanity, but he's losing his sanity, kind of a deal. He looks at the picture. He actually took a picture of Mayu's corpse, and he's kind of admiring it, kind of having a crazy moment, saying it's art. Mayu's spirit speaks to him through the phone. She's like, don't look at me, like, just don't look at what like my insides look like. And he loses his ever fucking mind, and it cuts off from there, and it goes to a different character. So we don't know what happened to Morishige until way later in the chapter, which is itself was really fucked up.
Yeah,
I mean, that was gross. Yeah, like, it was, imagine the person you're looking for, right? And you're just like, oh, I had their picture this whole time, and oh, their spirit's speaking to me, so Morishige lost his shit, basically. But to try and condense chapter 5, because it's a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of knowledge dropped on you. I'll try and condense it as much as I can. Chapter 5 is basically going back and forth between the characters. They've discovered, of course, Sachiko was the killer. Ayumi and Yoshiki decide to come back to Heavenly Host to help the others, because they're like, no, we know what happened now. We can appease Sachiko. We can have everyone come back with us who are alive, because, we still have the others there. We can't leave them. They go back, of course, and they do eventually meet up with the others. It's like a weird... The spaces have become connected now, because they appease Ayumi and Yoshiki appease the other spirits, so the strength of it is weak. So of course they're able to reunite eventually. They find out, like, they have to appease Sachiko, and they're like, the fuck we're gonna do that? I guess we gotta tell her. I guess we gotta appease her somehow. So that's what they go and try and do, that kind of a thing. The rest of the chapter is the guys kind of going back and forth, trying to find different ways to appease her. They find like this black cat plushie that her mom gave her. We do find out what happened to Sachiko in this chapter. Many years back, it was her birthday. Her mom was the school nurse. She was waiting for her mom to get out of work. They were supposed to like go out somewhere. the principal, so it's not it's implied, but it's not really confirmed, but he tried to
he comes on to her, the mom, and she's kind of like, no.
She doesn't remember what happened, so it's not implied if he actually like was successful with, you know, taking advantage of her. But she runs from him because he's chasing her down. She slips on the stairs and she falls and breaks her neck, kind of a deal,
and dies.
And she dies at the stairs. We find this out through her spirit, like Satoshi finds her journal or whatever, and he gets to see what happened that day. Sachiko unfortunately saw what happened. She tried running. The principal catches her and he strangles her to death.
Right, because he doesn't want any witnesses.
And of course, he buries her body in the
basement.
In the basement, Sachiko's rage was so much that her spirit was basically haunting him. The principal. He would go back in like a fit of insanity to her body. He basically undigs her body and cuts out her tongue after the fact that she's dead, which I found so horrible. It was like, dude, you already killed her. Like, why? Because in his madness, he's like, oh, you won't be able to talk without your tongue, this, that, and the other, which is why Sachiko kills the other kids that way, because she was killed that way.
Right, and then was
it happened after her body.
No, her body was like, her body was like further mutilated even after she died, and it's like.
She found, like, we won't find out how she did it until like the third game, but I won't spoil it for anybody who did. But she found a way to have a flesh and blood body again through mysterious powers and stuff like that. Her mom basically said like it shouldn't have been possible for her to do that, but she did. Then she started killing off kids because her mom was lonely. Like she kept killing kids to the point where Sachiko just did it for fun at that point because she was losing, as a spirit, she was losing herself. And then she came, of course, as a spirit, she was losing herself, having already died. I mean, when she was in that body, like, she was just, like, so killing off people, and she was just, like, losing her mind and her sense of self, until eventually it was, like, the murders with the kids happened. She faked being a survivor, and then she was able to go back to Heavenly Post with her mom, and her mom's kind of, like, lamenting, like, I created a monster. Basically, like, because I was lonely, my daughter doesn't recognize me anymore, and she's, like, killing people for fun. And she doesn't see me, that and the other, and we're like, dude.
Right, like the madness got to her.
Yeah, like she eventually, like her rage for having her mom being murdered, her being murdered, again, it turned her vengeful, and she ended up taking it out on the principal's son at first, because she was able to use her spirit. She had high spiritual powers even when alive, so she was kind of like Ayumi, where she was spiritually aware. But
yeah, and they have the same last name.
They do have the same last name. Spoiler alert: they actually are related.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Ayumi.
Do they explain that in a like later game or something, or? They
do. They explained it in the third game that they actually explained it in Book Shadows, in the second game. That they're related. They're like second. They're somewhat cousins, like something removed or some shit. They share like a grandma or a great grandma, some shit like that. I remember, but they're related. They're like they're cousins, basically.
That's all. They're always cousins, man.
Like, yeah, they're basically cousins. Again, we said he would go crazy. The principal would later kill him. Like, he was like, he's basically having a freak out about it, and of course he ends up killing himself. He did take his life. And of course after that, Sachiko went back to Heavenly Hills to be with her mom. We get a whole bunch of information thrown at us. We talked about Naho being another information drop. She dropped some shit on us, especially during the chapter, because Ayumi, again, the guys meet, they're like, well, we need to find out information, we gotta find items to impeach Sachiko, so we do find Yuka eventually, or Naomi and Satoshi do, but they're like, okay, so we three are gonna do this because we're on one half of the school that's busted, and of course Ayumi and Yoshiki are gonna do their thing, because they're of course together on the other half, so they're going finding information. We find out that, of course, Naho tells us in previous chapters that she's looking for her teacher, or her basically her mentor, his name is Kibiki. He's a basically an occult writer. He like writes scary stories and shit like that. Naho's like obsessed with him. The reason she went to Heavenly Host in the first place was because Kibiki and their camera guy Taguchi were there. They did the ritual and she like followed after them. We don't know how she pulled off the ritual until like the second game with Book of Shadows, but like she went. Of course, Naho is dead. She just doesn't remember how she died, but she's looking for Kibiki. We find out that, of course, Kibiki and Taguchi, he dies later, but we do find Kibiki and he's dead.
Yeah, they find his corpse in like a closet.
Yeah, we find him in the janitor's closet or some shit. But of course, we find out that Naho drops him. Like, we find out information from Naho. So the charm originally was not a friendship staying together charm kind of a deal. Naho lied because originally the charm was, of course, to send you to Heavenly Host. She actually wrote that. We find her notes. Ayumi and Yoshiki find her notes, like her notebook, and she wrote it down. And one of the pages that Ayumi finds was basically like, she's basically lamenting that, when we were researching Sachiko and of course Shinozaki, my learnings they're too broad. Like, we can't do this. It's too dangerous to do this because we find out in Book of Shadows, but I'll just tell you guys straight out. Like, she went to go see the mansion that Sachiko and her mom were living in. And she got cursed by it. So Sachiko has been like doing small shit to her. So she writes to Kibiki basically saying, hey, we shouldn't go, dude. Like, this is bad. Kind of a deal. But she wrote, so the charm originally was to take you to so originally it was called Sachiko in the Ever After. So technically the charm worked the way it was supposed to, but you were supposed to say one more
for Sachiko.
So otherwise it would transport you to Heavenly Host. Naho did it on purpose. Like, I'm gonna say this right now. Everyone was saying it in comments and stuff, or like saying it in like forums. No, Naho was not possessed by. They call it the darkening. It's basically where all the bad shit kind of affects you and you turn crazy. Naho was not affected by the darkening, even if she was cursed by Sachiko. She was not affected IRL. She did it on purpose because when she found out that Kibiki was going to go to Heavenly Host, she basically put, and Ayumi calls her out on it too, like, she did it because she wanted Kibiki to have a sample to write about. So if there were more dead bodies, it'd be better for him. So she did it on purpose, knowing that she was going to get a bunch of these people killed.
Wow, which was fucking bitch.
Right, she did it on purpose, guys. She was not affected by the darkening. She was like in Book of Shadows, we actually get to see how she ended up in Heavenly Host. Same thing. It just reaffirms that she did it of her own volition.
But doesn't she also go there because she's like in love with Kibiki too? Like, she's like not only obsessed with him, she's like in love with him.
She's in love with him. She was living with, like, she has we don't really know what happened with her family, but she's not living with her family. She's actually living at Kibiki's place, and of course she's in love with him. Like, she admires him, all that shit, and she's like downright obsessed with him. And when she gets confronted by that, she's like, she doesn't even say she's sorry. She's just like, who fucking cares? Because I did it anyway. And of course, it pisses off Ayumi. She's like, the fuck, dude. So that was that knowledge drop that we did the charm wrong. Because Naho basically put it on her blog that she put the wrong answers on like the wrong way on purpose.
Right, and like before you even learn that, don't they like make you think like, oh, someone fucked up? They didn't say it.
Yeah, because Naho's the one who basically puts that in your head too. Like, she's like, oh.
So one of you guys didn't say it enough times or said it one too many times.
And that's what screwed it up.
So like, it was you guys that fucked it up. Yeah.
Like, no, it was you. And they were like, yeah, it was her. It was her fault. Because everyone was like, at first, like, let's get real. Like, some of us are blaming Ayumi because she was like, this was your idea to do the charm. This is why we're all here. And of course, Naho was just like, well, maybe one of you guys just fucked up the saying, and this, that, and the other. Like, no, it was her fault. It really was her fault. It was Naho's. That was that knowledge drop, and of course, the other knowledge drop was the reveal of what happened with Sachiko and her mom. The rest of the chapter is kind of we have to find ways to appease Naho, or not Naho, Sachiko. We go to the basement to figure out what happened. That's where she'll be, because of course that's the place she died. So we have to go to the basement of Heavenly Host. We do eventually appease Sachiko. We have to do the saying the right way, of course, which is basically say it once for every person in the room, and then one more for Sachiko.
And then they have to keep their little piece of paper of like the little charm.
Yeah, you have. That's another thing too.
That
like,
they have.
Charm, they have to have it on them in order for it to work. If you don't have your charm, you're stuck. You're not gonna go home. Even after you meet all the criteria and you don't have your charm.
Yeah.
You're fucked if you don't have the charm. That part of the charm, at least.
Because when they first do it, they have a little paper doll and they like each take a piece and they pull on it and it breaks into however many pieces they have. So they have to keep it.
And of course the members do have it. We find Naomi's like tag where she had her charm. Luckily, Ayumi found it and she gave it back to Naomi. She's like, you need to hold on to this. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only reveal in chapter 5 either. Like, we got to appease Sachiko after some shit, but we also find out how Seiko died, like how she really died. So we find a tape that the cameraman, that Kibiki's cameraman Taguchi made. He witnessed Seiko getting murdered. So we talked about the darkening, which is basically like a dark spiritual force that takes you over should the negative emotions overtake you or in the school. It happened to Naomi. Like, after she had that fight with Seiko in chapter 1, she ended up becoming possessed by the darkening, and in that induced state, she was the one that killed Seiko. She
basically made it look like she hanged herself, but she didn't.
Yeah, but she was the one who did it. And of course Naomi sees that video before she reunites with the gang to do like the appeasement for Sachiko, and she's like, oh my god.
And she's like, oh my god, I killed her. Because which one's in love with the other? Seiko's in love with Naomi.
We find out in the earlier chapters that Seiko's in love with Naomi. She does not tell her feelings because she knows that Naomi loves Satoshi, and she's like, I can't compete with that. But of course, in one of the chapters, like in the game, you can talk with Seiko's spirit, and you have the option to either kiss her or don't. And of course, like, if you do, it ends up really cute, and it makes you sad because you're like,
oh, you did, and then it's like even worse because then you realize, oh shit, like Naomi killed her.
Yeah, Naomi was the one that killed her. Of course, she doesn't reveal that to anybody, unless like she tells Satoshi after they get back home. But of course, they appease Sachiko in chapter 5. If you do the charm the right way, you give her the right items. You have to give her the cat plushie, and of course, say the charm the right way for everyone in the room, and of course one for Sachiko. The charm works. They run. They go home. They're brought back. And they're like, yeah, and they're like, oh god, because they're like, now what do we do? Because we have to tell people.
But right, like we have to tell people they can't do it. Like, don't do the charm
and stuff. Ayumi does do that though. She finds Naho's blog and she like tells people not to do it because this is what will happen. But they go back home though, and Ayumi tells them, hey, I'll need to backtrack. We do find Yui Sensei though, like she was like bleeding and shit, but she does die from like
her injuries.
She died though, like from a different, like she was bleeding out and stuff, but like she was trying to help Ayumi and Yoshiki in chapter 5. The floor opens up and she falls through. With the fall itself kills her because she's already injured. But again, wait, let's flash forward. They all go back. Ayumi tells the rest of the gang, hey, don't skip school. You need to come to school. Like, no matter how bad it is, you need to go. Of course, the guys are like, how the fuck? Like, so we follow Satoshi home apparently, and he's like, I don't know how we're gonna sleep with all the crap we saw. Like, how are we gonna sleep? Of course, he's like, no, we fell asleep eventually. Like, I know it. Like, I knocked out. You didn't think I wouldn't, but I did. And of course, the next morning, mic drop. The guys are like asking about the other. They want to know if they bring up everybody, what's gonna happen.
Right, because they're gone. They're dead. They're not there.
And they're like, oh, Suzumoto's transferring. They're like, who? Are we getting a transfer student? And they're like, are you fucking serious? And they're like,
bam.
Oh, who's Morishige? Do we have, like, so apparently
bam,
when you
twist ending.
The twist ending is that when you die in Heavenly Host, your existence
you're like
erased. Is erased.
Yeah.
They have no memory of like anybody.
They don't exist anymore.
At all. Like, they even ask about the teacher, they're like, oh, they're like, who? This so-and-so is our teacher. And then, of course, you ask about the other students, and they're like,
who the fuck is that?
And everyone's like, oh my god, no one remembers them. Their existence has been erased, and that's how the game ends, right? It's like, that's how the good ending.
Yeah, that's like the good ending. I guess that's like their punishment, I guess, is like, well, they died, so fuck you guys. You're the old, yeah, they're the only ones that remember them.
Yep, that's
but they even part, like, but is it Naomi or Ayumi who says, like, it's Naomi, right? Because she talks to Satoshi about it. She's like, no, like, they may not exist anymore, but like we know that they existed. Like
Yeah,
if we remember them, if we know that they were once alive, they'll never be gone. So that's like a kind of a little hopeful message. I mean, it's still kind of fucked up. But at least you know they're kind of like, well, you know what? If I remember them, then they existed.
Of course, that's how the game ends. But if you get the bad ending, like if you didn't do like certain like stuff right, like there's like in chapter 5, like you have to find all of Naho's notes. If you don't, the bad end is basically where you basically repeat the day.
Right.
Like all this shit that, like you repeat the day and you're like the fuck, and of course that's where the second game kind of comes in, where it goes from that point from the bad end, and it like gives you like more. It gives you alternative things that happen in Book of Shadows, but there's only like 2 chapters in that game that are like important to the plot of like the overall game. But that concludes the first game. That concludes Corpse Party, though. That was its big twist ending, where it was like they don't remember anybody, and they're like, well, how do we go on from there? But that's where the game ends.
I think the one that's like most disturbs me the most is like the getting buried alive kind of thing. That's like the most terrifying thing to me.
So was it chapter 2 or 3? So you don't look at the fucking ghost, guys. If you're playing this game for the first time after like hearing this, there's a bad ending you get with Yoshiki. Don't look at the spirits. Chapter 2. It's chapter 2. Don't look at the spirits' eyeballs, guys. Like, don't look directly in their eyes. If you do, Ryu, one of the male spirits, like if Yoshiki looks in his eyes, like he'll bury him alive. That's a bad end. And Yoshiki's like slowly suffocating because like the dirt's being piled on him.
Yeah, that's see, I don't. That was like the most disturbing one, I feel like, to me. Like the thought of being buried alive and just like basically suffocating to death. No, thank you.
Like on dirt, like no thank you.
Yeah, with like dirt going down your lungs is like no. I do not like
this ending. No thank you. Well, there's like so many bad endings you can get like throughout the chapters. Like if Yuka gets caught by Kizami, she'll be like strapped down to like a table or something, and he's just like trying to kill her off. Like she'll die from that. Like Kizami will kill her off, strapped down to a table. That's really gross.
And Kizami does die in the game, by the way. Like,
yeah, let me clarify. Kizami dies in the chapter of the game because, like, as he's chasing Yuka, Sachiko ends up helping her out in a weird way. She goes by the science room, and of course we see his body later. So, in chapter like 5, when Ayumi and Yoshiki are trying to like find the notes or some shit. But if Kizami dies, he gets bludgeoned by Yoshikazu, the janitor, or who Sachiko had under her control. He is later like if you escape, like if you see the room, like it flashes and there's like blood across the science lab. He became the atomical model.
Yeah.
You even find his name tag outside.
Yeah, you find his name tag outside of the room. So like, yeah, he does die.
Yeah, Kizami dies. Like a lot of these characters die. Like from the other schools, like a bunch of them ended up dead, or pretty much all of them, with the exception of Hisaragi Academy. Is like a few of them managed to live, but like all those other kids that were in there ended up dead. Which is really sad because like when you like play this game, you guys, like it emphasizes that a whole bunch of different like ages did this game, did the charm. Like there's like these like elementary school kids. At one point, you find their bodies. You find like some middle schoolers, and you're like, oh my god, you guys are like little kids.
Yeah. Don't do weird rituals, like, guys.
I know, like don't do shit on the internet.
You'll end up in.
You don't know the source.
You'll end up in Heavenly Host Elementary School, and you'll end up killing each other. And even some of the other deaths too are really fucked up. Like there's one ending where you eat the other student because like you some of these students like turn into cannibals basically. Like they eat each other.
So there's a bad ending in chapter 3. So there's notes. They tell you don't read these notes in order because if you do, you're gonna get a bad end. So it's with Yoshiki and Ayumi. So as you're reading it, there's certain notes are like, oh, I had to kill my friend today, and you're like, the fuck? But if you find all of them, the bad end is that it was Yoshiki that killed Ayumi. They had played rock paper scissors. He ended up eating her or whatever, and he kept her eye, and then eventually ate the eye. And you're like, because you find quote unquote Ayumi's note saying, oh, he killed me, and then the CG like opens up and you see her body like just splayed out, and Yoshiki having like a fucking fit because of course he's in love with her, and he's like, oh my god, I ate my friend, and that's one of the bad endings.
That was also like one of the disturbing endings that I'm like, no thank you.
Right, you're like, dude, you fucking, I'm like, ugh. And then there's another one where I think when you're like looking for the tongues, like if you don't, you have to go in the pool, and if it's timed.
Oh yeah, it's timed. You have to find her like before she like jumps in. She drowns. And then if you do it wrong, like you see the empty pool, and then you see like her body's in like part of the big drain.
If you don't go in, if you don't, so that's another end.
Oh really?
Chapter. So one of the end is that she'll drown if you don't do the timer right. If you don't find it right, she'll die.
Right. Because you have to look for her body in the water, because that's when she's drowning. But yeah, there's another one.
Yeah, there's another one there too. Like if you don't go to the pool first, like there's like a room like that can drain the water. If you drain the water out first before like going and looking in the pool to see if she like was in there, she'll have like been sucked into the drain and she died. And you just see her body like in the drain. And I'm like, dude. Oh, I forgot to tell the guys what happened to Morishige, because Morishige did die.
Oh yeah.
He basically, after like he found like they find his like
his phone,
and it was like recording. I guess one of the spirits like put it on record, and he basically had like a fucking freak out over seeing Mayu's body, to the point that you can hear like he's basically smashing his head against a window, and eventually he
falls out the window.
Runs. Yeah, he like jumps.
So that's why they're together in death.
Yeah, they are together in death because Morishige does die. Like the only survivors were, of course, Ayumi, Yoshiki, Naomi, Satoshi, and Yuka, and then of course the 4 that are dead were Seiko, Yui Sensei, Morishige, and Mayu. So out of the 9, only like 5 got to live.
Their poor teacher, man. She went up, did all this dumb bullshit with her students. They got fucked up.
Right? Like the game is really good though. I love playing this game because it kept me on my toes. Like the great thing about it is that because it is like a pixelated game, like you draw on your imagination sometimes before the CGs, and then they give you like vivid descriptions, and you're like, please stop.
Yeah.
So like they don't need to use a lot of gore for this game.
I know, yes. Yeah, it's more the other elements. Like you don't really have to see everything. Like just reading the descriptions and like hearing the sounds.
It's like enough for you.
Yeah.
Please stop.
It's a pretty cool game though. Like, I think it really paved the way for other RPG horror games. So, good on you, Corpse Party.
Like, if you guys like ever get the chance, I highly recommend. Like, even if you don't play it, like I recommend like watching a playthrough for this game because it's really good. I loved playing this game. I played all 3 of them. I have literally played all 3 of them.
Definitely a fun time. And if you are interested in the OVAs, you can watch it if you want.
If you're interested in just like watching the gore, just to watch like what some of the bad ends look like. It's not all the bad ends. It does. So the OVA, I don't count it as like legit, mainly because it's just like bad ends. What could happen, and then it was just like gory to be gory. It didn't really like cover like the game, like all the game. It was like just certain plots, like just certain points where they changed a bunch of shit. But if you're interested in watching it, it's called Corpse Party Tortured Souls. The OVA, you can watch it on YouTube and like other places that you watch anime on.
Because and they got the voice cast to like do it, so it's the same voices from the game. But it's a fun time. It's pretty interesting. It's an interesting game. I want to watch like other playthroughs of the other games so I can understand more of the story. But I figured we should only talk about I just figured we should only talk about the first game because it's long and I mean we've been recording for an hour and 45 minutes, so that was just one game.
Yeah, that was just one game, you guys. Like if you're interested in like watching a game through or like just like picking up the game, I recommend it. If you guys watch a playthrough, I recommend Eric Van Wilderman, mainly because like he played all 3 games and he took it seriously. Like I know PewDiePie did a run through, I just didn't like the way he did it. Like I tried watching a video of his for a course party and I was like, nope, can't do it, guys. Well, that's what I recommend. I recommend Eric Van Wilderman. Like watch the playthrough. He too has played all 3 games. Like I have. Like if you guys are interested, pick up the games. Like it's really like it's fun. Book of Shadows isn't really like. It's only important like there's like a chapter called Purgatory that tells you how Naho got to Heavenly Host, which like broadened up her story, and then the end for Book of Shadows, which opens up to the 3rd game, Blood Drive. But again, like I played all 3 games. They're hella fun to play. If you get a chance, play them. Look at gameplays. If you're into like if you're into horror, like you know I am, it's a good time.
Well, I had fun watching the game. It does make me really interested in playing it.
Yeah, the game's not for everybody. I feel like the first game is not for everybody because it is like one of those like I feel like it's really suspenseful. Like when you're playing it, like it gave me anxiety at certain times because like you're either being chased down or you're timed and you gotta do this, and I'm like, oh no. Like the thing with Kizami, I was trying not to get caught. That scared the shit out of me. And then the thing with the atomic model, with in the classroom, I had to do that. I was like, oh shit, I had to get out and not get caught by Yoshikazu, who's also in the room, and then the atomic model. I was like, nope. That gave me anxiety.
It looks fun, and plus, if it makes you want to play other RPG horror games, like highly recommend playing other RPG horror games. Just in general, I think RPG horror games are really cool.
Right. If this one doesn't like tick off the box for like spooky shit, I recommend other RPG horror games that do just as well. Eve was a really good one.
Eve's a cool one. Eve's a cool one. Mad Father's an interesting one. I like The Witch's House.
Witch's House is really good. Dream Diary was really freaky. Alice Mare was one of them. There's a whole bunch, you guys, that you can play besides this one. But I wanted to talk mainly about this one because I feel like it's underrated. No one plays it, or no one talks about it as much. And like, it's a really good game. It doesn't get a lot of love, so I wanted to give it some love.
Definitely. And again, it's October, so you know we gotta get spooky up in here. 'Tis the season, so of course we had to talk about something horrific, and we haven't talked about a horror series before, so this is definitely a good one to start off with. I mean, not saying we can't talk about scary stuff like whenever we want, because you know I also do like horror stuff. I'm glad that I got to like watch it because like I really do also like horror games and movies and shows. Like I love playing scary games. I love watching people play scary games. But again, I feel like this is more disturbing than like scary, terrifying. Like watching it, like I wasn't like, oh no, that game made me like not fall asleep at night. Like no, it was a fun time. I had fun watching the game play out.
Yeah, it doesn't scare you in a traditional way. It's not where it's like jump scary or anything like that. I feel like it holds a lot of like, again, for me, what gave me anxiety to like what scared the crap out of me was like during like the times where like I was being chased down or I had to do this and like don't do this, like when the music changes, like the game is really good about like giving you proper music cues where scary shit's gonna happen, or like where some spooky shit's happening. You're like, oh god, no, it's not jump scary. It's like I go back to this word. It's very suspenseful, and it just draws on a lot of like at times it's horror very well. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like for me, it was like it's well timed. Like there's just certain things that they do, and you're like, oh, this is scary, and you're like, or it's more just again like Mia was saying, it's more disturbing than scary. Like it's not gonna like freak you out. It's more like, why?
Right, unless you really don't like gory, bloody kind of, at least being described to you. Because again, you don't really see too much, like, it's not a gore fest. It's not like a Saw movie or something. Like, it's not torture porn. It's more just like, ooh, that description sounds really disgusting, and then like, right, yeah, ooh, I get a disturbing CG, but at least I'm not seeing seeing it in action.
Yeah, you don't do that. It's more like, yeah, that's basically what it is. Like you're just like looking at the description, you're like, please stop.
Yeah.
Because the one time like with Maya, like they described like when Seiko like describing the body, you're just like, please stop saying that. It was like, yeah, like Seiko just described it really gross, and you're just like, please stop talking. Like, please stop talking about the body, please. Like, it just disturbs you more than anything else. But give it a whirl if you guys are interested, or watch the playthrough if you're into the spooky stuff. Is my recommendation.
I agree. I think it's a pretty interesting series, and I can't wait to delve more into the other games. Like, I'll definitely watch a playthrough of like the other 2 games. Is there a character you absolutely cannot stand, or like that you really like, or you know, like that? She does turn out to be a really annoying bitch.
Dude, I can't with her. Like when I was playing the game, like even like I was so like, to clarify, you guys, I did not watch any kind of like. I went into the game blind. I didn't watch any kind of playthrough. I didn't look at any guide. I went through it blind because at the time, like, there was none out. Because again, the game I feel is very underrated. So when I was playing it and I'm going through the chapter and and I'm meeting Naho, and I'm just like, why do you sound like, when you first meet her, she's creepy, right? They describe her as having eyes of a dead fish, and you're just like, ugh. And even then, she's looking at you all creepy, and you're like, dude, and like, again, she's not helpful throughout the game. She's like mocking you throughout the game, like, oh, you can't see your friends, this, that, and the other. I'm like, sucks to be you. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, why? And then, of course, when it's revealed that she did it on purpose, all for a guy who
she killed, by the way.
Yeah, we discovered that in the game too. Like, Naho killed Kibiki because she got taken over by the Darkening. Like, Naho has very high spiritual powers, and so she was taken over by the Darkening. When she found Kibiki, she strangled him, because we do find her body along with his in the janitor's closet, like they're together, which was like another like knowledge of like, oh, you killed, like, I even basically said like, oh, you killed Kibiki, because like she, like, her spirit before she, like, I guess, like, had its memory wiped or suppressed or whatever, like, wrote down that she killed Kibiki, and you're like, dude, the hell. So that was its own that was a reveal in the game too. But yeah, I didn't like her, like, when they dropped the fact that, oh, she did it for Kibiki, like, even before she entered the school, like, she just up and just did it, and you're like, you willingly did this, like, you posted this false information about how to do the charm, and a whole bunch of like there's like these little children, like various ages of kids, like, going into the school and ended up dying gruesomely because of you, and you didn't give 2 shits of the fact that you're responsible for their deaths. Like, she didn't care. Like, when you even confront her about it, she's like, oh, well, it was for Kibiki, and I'm like, you're a horrible person.
Well, yeah, and that's just kind of like, well, you also killed him too, bitch, so.
Right, like, in the Book of Shadows, they try and, like, give you some sympathy for her, but, like, even in Book of Shadows, I was like, no, like, you're still a horrible person, like, you still do what you did, like, no, I have no sympathies for her. Like, I'm it sucked that you got sucked in there, but the reason you got sucked in there was also horrible, because you did it for a bad reason, and I don't want to, like, spoil Book of Shadows, because you do find out how she did it. Like, because you can't do the charm by yourself, you guys. That's the thing. With the Sachiko Ever After charm, you cannot do the charm by yourself. It won't work. So you have to do it with other people. So she had a partner who she did the charm with, and we don't discover that until Book of Shadows, like, who she took with her. And, like, when you find out who she took with her is even more fucked up, because you're like, dude, really? Like, you're that fucked up that you brought this person with you? Like, really? And you didn't, like, she didn't care that she brought in, like, random kids from different places, or the person that she brought with her, right? She's like, it's for Kibi.
Right, she didn't care about the ramifications for other people.
Yeah, she didn't care.
Knowing that people read her blog and stuff and, like, are gonna do it. Because, again, like you mentioned earlier, she's like, oh, well, that means more possible bodies for him to find. Like, that'll make the TV show more interesting.
Yeah, like, the whole, like, so Kibiki's writing a book. Like, we find out in the game, like, he's in the first game, he's writing a book, and he's kind of having a bit of a slump. So they were researching Sachiko and the charm, and that's what he was going to write about. He was going to write about Heavenly Host, and she's like, oh well, if he's going in there anyway, I might as well give him a bigger sample to have. And so that's why she fucking did it. She did it for Kibiki. And I was like, you fucking let them all die. I need to give two shits.
Well, I thought
this. I have strong feelings.
I thought the sister was fucking annoying. She was annoying the whole game, and I'm like, but she's not gonna die.
Helpful. But
she's not gonna die because she's the main character's little sister, and they're not gonna kill her off.
Right? I don't like the real talk, yo. I'm surprised it was Yuka that did not die in the game because she's like willingly trusting all these people. Like she trusted Kizami right away, and you're like, dude,
he's a little sus. He's a little sus.
Like, I understand you're in a place where, like, there's dead bodies and shit, and you want to trust the living, but the living be kind of crazy, too, girl. Like, why are you trusting this random-ass stranger? Did your parents not tell you not to fucking talk to strangers? Yeah, Yuka was not.
Well, he told her he was going to help her find her brother. And remember, she acts like an 8-year-old when she's really, like, 14. So, of course, she's going to be naive and trust anybody that comes her way. I also got annoyed most of the time whenever, like, Naomi and Ayumi were, like, fighting over Satoshi, like, subtly. It's just, like, oh my god. Like, Ayumi would always, like, tell Naomi, like, well, don't flirt with him, okay? Or something like that. Like, something of that nature.
Like, it makes y'all feel any better, like, this isn't, like, it kind of is a spoiler, but if it makes you guys feel any better, Ayumi gets better about that. Because, you know, there's another best boy that has her best interest at heart, and we stand a caring man, alright?
I liked him. He's very level-headed, like, you know, unless, you know, read the notes that made him eat Ayumi, but, like, I liked his character. Satoshi was aight. He's the main character, like, he's kind of boring.
Yeah, Satoshi's, like, the generic good guy character, right? Like, even though he's a wuss, like, he will band together and, like, stiffen his backbone and shit like that, right? But, like, Yoshiki's a different kind of person where he's, like, he's tough, but he's really a softie. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but I loved him. Like, during the game, and, like, you realize he puts up a lot with Ayumi shit. Like, she knows in the back of her mind. Like, you get that in Book of Shadows, too, where he's, like, she knows that he does the things that he does for her. And she does grow to appreciate. Like, in the manga does a better job, too. Like, where she shows more appreciation to him. Like, in the game, she's, like, giving him shit. Like, she does grow to care. Like, she grows to care for him the way he cares for her.
So, who's your favorite character? Do you have a favorite character? Do you like multiple characters?
Actually, like, my favorite's Yoshiki.
I think so. I would say the same. And you know what? Even though he's fucked up, I like Kizumi, too, because he's hot. He was attractive.
He's hot.
Well, yeah, he's attractive, man. He's attractive. I don't give a shit. He's fucking dead, so I don't care.
Right, like a bunch of people. Funny enough, a bunch of people actually do like Kizami. Like, even though like we know he's fucked up, but I guess because he's fucked up, they like his character or whatever.
Yeah, you know, if he wasn't so fucked up, he'd be daddy levels. He's that attractive.
You know, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking, like if you have no idea what we're talking about, like, again, watch the game. Or the anime, because he's hot in the anime, too.
Oh, are you fucking serious, bruh? I might fucking watch the anime.
Watch the OVA. Like, watch the... I shouldn't say anime. It's the OVA. Like,
right.
Watch the bad ending OVA. Because Kizami's hot, too.
Ooh. Also, you'll recognize some voices in this game.
Yes, a bunch of voice actors.
I only recognize the male Seiyu, because I'm more into male Seiyu than female Seiyu, but... fucking main character Satoshi is fucking Sho from Utapri, so like it's Hiroshimono. Like, well, he's not just in Utapri, he's fucking Zenitsu in Demon Slayer. Like, he's in a bunch of stuff, you know, because he's good at screaming. His scream is iconic.
Kizami's voice actor has been in a bunch of anime. Like, you'll recognize his voice right off the bat. Right,
he plays isn't he Victor in Mr. Love in the Japanese version?
He is. Actually, Kizami's voice actor is fucking Victor. I was like, oh
I mean, God. I'm sorry, he's Zen in Mr. Love. No, it's fucking Victor.
Zen.
His name is Victor. God damn it.
But yeah,
he's Victor. And then I believe Morishige is Tetsuya Kakihara, who plays Kiro. I mean Kira in Mr. Love.
There's a whole, like, if you guys are like, you watch a bunch of anime, like,
you'll recognize the voices.
Like we do, like, you'll recognize the voices from like somewhere, even if it's like in the back of your mind, like, why does this voice sound familiar? It's probably because you played either the game a bunch of different games or a bunch of different listen to a bunch of different anime, and you heard their voices because like they're fucking everywhere. Even the female seiyus, like they're in other animes, like they're in other animes in the games, of course.
Right, so it's got a lot of recognizable voices. So if you guys are really into Seiyu, you'll probably recognize everybody. But it is a very interesting series. Highly recommend it if you guys, are curious.
Right, if you're like curious, like again, like either watch the playthrough or play the game, or if you don't want to, if you have the time, play the game. If you don't want to play the game, watch the game through.
I think so too. It's a pretty straightforward game. It's your typical like RPG
murder
game.
Kind of a thing. Like
you have to walk around, you find different items, you combine them, or you have to give someone like a certain item, or you need a certain key somewhere, so you have to look around. The game has an interesting mechanic where you can switch between the different like subgroups of people. So like if you can't find something with like Satoshi and Yuka, like, oh, maybe I should switch to these other characters. Maybe like if I do something with them, like it'll open a door for me or something with these other previous characters.
Yeah,
so
like in chapter 5, you'll switch between the groups. Like you'll switch between Satoshi, Naomi, and Yuka's group to Ayumi and Yoshiki. Like you have to do different things with different sets of the groups because you can't go to the other side and get what you need. You have to like go meet and transfer like whatever over to them. Like, this is for you, or we did this and this opened this up. Like you have to like it. The game is pretty straightforward, but it does make you hunt for stuff like keys, certain items. There are certain items you do have to go actively look for.
Yeah.
Like even in the extra chapters, which is a thing the game has, like you'll go through extra chapters in the game to meet new characters, but it doesn't really increase it increases stories for some of them. But others, it's just like, oh, this happened and this, that, and the other, and it just gives you like more story. Just like to continue the same story, but it does that in the extra chapters too, where like you actually like in the first extra chapter 1, you find like these group of girls, and they're trying to. Of course, they go in because the charm. They're like middle schoolers, and they meet a spirit, and you gotta like help him find like his hat and his glasses.
Oh yeah, it's the bathroom spirit. I like that. I liked that one.
Spirit.
He's like a nice spirit. He's just like chilling.
Yeah, he was really chill. He's just chill, like being in the bathroom because he has like social anxiety.
So yeah, it's like different mechanics that you'd find in other games. Like I think the switching off, like you do that in Ebe. Which came out later. You do that in Ebe, where you switch between Ebe and Gary. Like, I love Ebe. It's such a great game. We should totally talk about Ebe in a later episode. I would love to talk about Ebe.
We should, because that game's also another it's another RPG horror, or at this rate, there's like another game we could talk about as soon as we get through season 1.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we'll give you guys a little bit of a preview. Here's a mini bonus episode in this episode about Corpse Party. So we it's not like fully out yet technically because, okay, so imagine like Mystic Messenger, but instead of like a creepy cult kind of vibe within the story, you're like a descendant of Asmodeus and a human. So also shouts out to Obey Me. Just kidding. It's not a crossover, but it's Love Unholy Sea is what we're talking about. It's a Korean game. It's in the same vein as Mystic Messenger in terms of when it's a Korean game. Two, you have text, chat rooms and phone calls where you talk to these different characters and you have multiple routes. But this one's different because your main character is like this being known as an unholy sea. So you're basically a demon pretty much, where you have like special powers.
Specific, you're a type of sex demon.
You're basically right. Asmodeus is the demon of lust or whatever. So yeah, you're basically like a succubus kind of demon thing.
You're an immature succubus, basically. You haven't gotten full your powers yet.
Right, and you have to you have to go through this like ceremony.
But that's basically the first 7 days of like quote unquote season 1. You're basically going through like the chats with the guys, getting to know your partners. There's like scary shit happening too.
They fill you with this energy, basically. It's called acme, that they fill you with, and that's how you like I don't know.
By acme we mean like the crystallization of like dirty shit.
Yeah, like it's it's literally like they have to like touch you or kiss you, and that's how their acme gets thrown into you. You don't have like full on actual sexual relations until like the 7th day of your ceremony, when you actually fulfill the ceremony and you pick one of them who you use your full partner or whatever.
But this game is great. I love it so far.
It's pretty good. I really like it because sometimes when you call, because the guys that you make a contract with, they're humans, they're not other unholy seas.
So there's 3 of them. You get 3 guys to like have. You also can do video calls with these guys.
Yes, that's another element that they've added. That's different from like Mystic Messenger. You have video calls, and they actually move. Their mouths move. It's kind of jarring when you first see it.
Yeah, the bodies move too, and you're like, oh god, you move. You're blinking. Oh god. So, like, to better describe this game, it's just like Mystic Messenger and Obey Me had a baby. And this is the game that came out.
Basically.
It's gold, man. It's gold. Like, yeah, the video calls are gold. And, like, sometimes when you call the guys, let's get X-rated for a minute. They're self-pleasuring.
Yeah, they're... if we're gonna get X-rated, they're basically masturbating, like, while you're calling them. Like, they're, like, because at night... they're getting filled with acme that they have to pass on to you, so they're getting hot, like where they can't control it, like they're gonna burst at any second. So like sometimes when you call them at nighttime at certain times, they're like in the middle of like they get hot.
Yeah, they're basically in the middle of relieving themselves, and they like you can hear like a good portion of it, and they're like, let me call you back. And I'm
they're like, I gotta call you back. You're just like, I
mean, I guess if you feel the need to,
but some of the CGs are like quality. They're really good.
Oh, good.
They show them like touching you or whatever, filling you with their acme. It's not, and those images are not X-rated. Like it's like they're kissing like your hand or like your neck or your arm or something. I don't know why Hai chooses to like do it on your arm. That's fucking weird, but like, that was the only place he could do it. I don't know, but I'm very curious. But the routes have not come out yet. So once you finish the 7 days, there's just credits at the end. It's like, oh, coming soon. You're gonna actually get the routes. Just like Mystic Messenger, there's multiple, like, bad endings, comical endings. And I'm sure within the routes there are different, like, bad endings as well. So I'm curious to see, like, what that's gonna be like. But you guys can download the game already. It's free to download. I will say it's a little hard to figure things out. Because, I mean, they just added a tutorial, I think.
Yeah, they did. They just added it.
But even so, it doesn't tell you everything.
Great right now with like trying to like alert you when you unlock certain things, or if like certain chats are available, because sometimes people will miss them or the notification goes off too late and you're like, dude, the hell.
Yeah, that's happened to me several times. Highly recommend it. It's also kind of spooky, not spooky, but there's some disturbing kind of things going on.
Yeah, there's some disturbing shit going on.
So,
like, there's like one bad ending where you're getting stared at and I'm like, oh god, and it's like not like what I'm making it sound like. It sounds like super freaking creepy. Like it's like the CG like freaked me out because it happened in the middle, like in the early morning. When I got that bad ending and I was like, oh god, no.
Also, in this game, when you get a bad ending, it like deletes your save file.
Yeah, if you pick certain choices, it will delete your game file, and you're gonna have to start over if you did previously save somewhere else from a different day. You're screwed. This game will make you start over.
Yeah, I had to start over the first 5 seconds I played it the very first time.
Same.
Because it's the same. It has that same like beginning bad ending like Mystic Messenger has. Where in the first 2 minutes of the game you can get a bad ending. So if you like Mystic Messenger, you'll definitely like this game. This is a good episode. Very fun series. Again, we highly recommend you guys play it. Or at least watch a playthrough. If you like this video, or if you're listening on YouTube, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you already haven't. All of our links are in the description. And if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, thank you so much. once again for listening. Please go ahead and share our Anchor profile or our Spotify to other people if you think they would be interested. And of course, we also have a Twitter for our podcast account. So if you guys want to go ahead and follow us there, please do so. That way you know whenever we're recording for new episodes. And if we want to take any of your questions or if you have any suggestions for us, definitely let us know there. And next month, I have no idea what we're doing.
I know, right? That's up in the air, guys.
I kind of, yeah, like, we have to talk about it. But once we figure out what we're gonna do, we're definitely gonna let you guys know on Twitter. So be on the lookout. We'll let you know what the month of November is gonna be when we get to that point. But we'll definitely let you guys know. If we don't have a main episode, we'll definitely have a bonus episode about something. I don't know what.
We'll figure it out.
But we'll definitely have a video up next month. You know, you guys know that. You know, we always want to be consistent and at least post something once a month. So we'll definitely have a video up next month. We just got to figure out what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah. Well, before anything crazy happens, we'll figure it out.
But once again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next month with whatever the hell we pick.
I know, whatever we decide to figure it out.
So, bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.